Thank you very much. Welcome to this press conference. I was hoping today to postpone the press conference to another time, given that we had Secretary Rubio here. But their press conference finished early. I was hoping that it would have given me an excuse not to come today, maybe defer to another day, since it's been really another slow week. We're extremely pleased that Secretary Rubio visited Guyana just 9 weeks after he became the Secretary of State. As he himself pointed out, Guyana has a strong relationship with the United States of America, and there is a mutual commitment to grow that relationship. The President and Secretary Rubio just concluded a press conference, and I think the President explained some of the areas of focus. And so I'm not going to repeat what he said. And the Secretary himself pointed out several issues that are of great interest to Guyanese here and abroad, particularly as they relate to our security and the preservation of our territorial integrity. And we are extremely grateful to the government of the United States of America for its strong support on the border matter, its commitment to recognize the 1899 arbitral award as the final and complete satisfaction of the process of the demarcation of our borders, which took place in 1905, that settled the matter of our borders, and their strong support to ensure that that border is respected. So we're extremely grateful for that. In the discussions that we've had with the Secretary of State, a number of issues were raised in relation to Guyana. The President may not have had time to elaborate on all of those, but I'm sure at some point in time he will do so. We spoke about the exciting future for Guyana, the necessity of planning that future carefully. The Secretary himself pointed out that what we're engaged in here in Guyana now is a transformational process. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And the decisions we may make today, that they will live with this country for the next 100 years. And that it's important that those decisions are made in a manner that enhance the welfare of people. And we pointed out to the Secretary of State the huge opportunities in the oil and gas sector, but also our intense focus on several new growth poles to create the prosperity of the future. We're committed in ensuring that the economy is developed in a balanced way, in a diversified way, so that we don't suffer future shocks because of the volatility in global markets in the oil and gas sector, that we maintain our prosperity long after oil has peaked and it starts to decline. And the only way to do so is to ensure that right now the infrastructure, the policy, and the investments are put in the new growth areas. We have outlined what some of those growth poles are for future prosperity for Guyana. No other political party has done that. And we have pointed out how we're stimulating investment flows in these areas so the jobs of the future, the income of the future, the revenue of the future will come equally from those sectors as they would come from the oil and gas industry. And so we discussed this at length. We discussed the long road that we have traveled from the past when we had an unsustainable economy where debt service dominated, well, took up 100% of revenue under the PNC, APNU, AFC, and to a situation now when we have one of the most sustainable macroeconomic framework in the world. Our macro fundamentals are so solid, they're better than most. In fact, I can think almost every developed country in the world. And therefore, our capacity for financing new projects in the future without burdening future generations of Guyanese with a repayment schedule that would harm their possibilities to prosper or affect our development, the development pathway of the country would be limited given that solid macroeconomic fundamental that we've had. The PPP has had to contend in office with this burden, which although we were trying to transform Guyana, we lost many development opportunities, money that should have gone to healthcare and education and the stimulation of the economy in the 90s and the early 2000s went to paying debts that were taken by a generation long before who lived above their means in the PNC. And therefore, we lost opportunities for development. But you had to deal with it as a country, and we dealt with it. So a lot of issues were discussed in the bilateral engagements. The Secretary of State pointed out what they're doing in the United States of America and their approaches to various issues. So we are extremely grateful for the visit. We think the visit will enhance our relationship. It will clarify issues that from time to time gets distorted on the way to the State Department or to the US government. That direct engagement will ensure that those who are deliberately distorting what we stand for. Many of them live abroad and some are here. Some are from the opposition. That they will not succeed in doing that. We're not whitewashing what we are, but we want the facts to be known about the PPP and the government of Guyana. So we're very pleased that the visit has allowed us to not just to have that engagement, but to create that mechanism that there would be no distortion as to what's going on in Guyana. What our motives are, what our goals are, what our aspirations for our people are. There'd be no doubt about it. So I've seen from last Sunday, the event at Babu Jan, that a lot has been said by some people. Predictably, some of the PPP haters. And The other group of PPP haters, they just fell silent. So the ones who had to come out said that the PPP is scared. Now, when you look at the gathering, it's the biggest political gathering in the country since the last elections. And it comes on the back of similar activities that we have had in the course of this term in office. We've had the largest Congress for any political party. Over 3,000 delegates and observers. No other political party has done that. Considering that the delegates are just representatives of broader political groups. We've had several engagements with over 15,000 young people joining the PYO. And now we've just had over 10,000 people at Babujan. And these are people, if you look at it, a lot of them, the majority came on their own. They drove up, they were enthusiastic, they were happy, not sour looking, like some political events you see sour. They didn't cut lime and do a walk on people. They were all pleased with being there. They were happy with our achievements, and it was a gathering that looked like Guyana. People of every race going there to listen to our message. So the ones who were saying we're scared, it's a reverse psychology. They are scared. Some are shocked into silence because they're hoping it would be a dodo affair like they often have, a dull, uninspiring, poorly attended event with people of one race, and they would have been very happy. We wouldn't have been scared if that happened, but they were shocked into silence. And then when you look at the gathering, you saw something that personally warmed my heart, because almost half of the people there were young people. Who are connected to the party and its message and the programs for the country. Not many political parties can get a lot of young people to come out. Definitely now the PNC, look at their protests or whatever they have, activities. They're dated because of the racism, etc., that they push. And so a lot of them sought to undermine what we stand for. And it's worth developing that theme again today. At Babujan, I spoke of one young lady, a young girl, reading a message there that was extracted from Chedi Jagan's writing to talk about how they carry the racist messages to different communities in the 1960s. He was talking about 1964. That's when he wrote that. That's the period he was referring to. And he said that the message is very different for different communities. The opposition would never have one message for Guyana and all of our people. So they play on people's fears. They always go to Afro-Guyanese communities and say, you are being neglected by the PPP. You have no place in that party. This is a racist party. And your only hope of progress is to stay with us. And they characterize everyone else, every Afro-Guyanese person who defy the lie that they tell to Afro-Guyanese as cowards, as soup drinkers, and a whole range of other things. And I pointed out how many of our Afro-Guyanese leaders had to suffer the indignity of being harassed and called names. I pointed out people like Roger Luncheon, one of the brightest doctors ever in the history of this country. I've seen people who had such a, when he was HPS, like I called, one day I was sitting as president, and Luncheon, a woman came to me and said her son was in a bad shape at the hospital. And I called for Roger, and he said to her, you know, I can tell you anything, but you have to prepare for a funeral. He was blunt. And she started crying, and I asked her, no, we're gonna try to do something. And she said, you know why I'm crying? Because if Luncheon says that, that's going to be it. As a medical doctor, people used to come there, used to work there at the hospital for free. The kind of work commitment he had. When he came back from university, he joined the PPP. When he came back as a doctor, joined the party. We're not in power. He did not come to the party because we had things to give him. That was long before 1992. The commitment. He worked every day of his life until he passed away. He grew blind, but he was still working. And he couldn't move, he went to work. Moved him in a wheelchair to work. But if you listen to them, the vile things they said about Luncheon throughout his life, all the time. Cyril Belgrave, Clinton Collymore, all of these people. So I know of it. I know how it hurt those comrades, because they knew that people were never given Afro-Guyanese a fair chance to see what the PPP was all about, and what Chedi Jagan wanted. Was trying for a unified party. And then they go, look at this week. A same week, they, as Chedi Jagan pointed out, all week they're saying, oh, Afro-Guyanese taking over the PPP now. That's the reverse psychology to the Indians. Now, trying to keep them away, like to create some sense of resentment. They're taking over the PPP now, coming in and getting everything and stuff, to create again a sense of resentment. It is what APNU is doing, and the AFC. But people are wise. Our supporters are wise. They know that it started from the beginning. Everybody is included. They've done it to the Amerindians. They go and say, only coastal people, Indian and Afro-Guyanese, are getting everything from the government. You're neglected. And it's worth repeating here today, because since we came back from Babu John, they're just going crazy. Oh, the PPP is scared, but they are scared. The PPP, some went silent, and then they went into overdrive on the racism. Overdrive on the racism. They rolled out all the extremists to generate fear and to create discord in our ranks. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Our supporters have seen this over the years, right across the country. And people, we made it clear, people are welcome when they come into this party. Our party goes stronger by the day because of our philosophy. and that's why they're weak. So they're not going to get us to back off on what was the founding goal of our party, which was to work for all Guyana and to bring people together. No matter how much they distort our history, no matter how much they say Jagdeo is a demon and all sorts of things, that's the usual stuff. The demon Jagdeo or killer Jagdeo or whatever else. We don't care too much about that. We're not going to stop working for this. This is a message that is worth repeating every day. And that's why I was so pleased that so many young people were there, because they're the ones who have to fight this battle. We must never allow the fossils to define how this country evolves into the future. And it was pleasing. The next thing they came about is now they're embracing Chedi Jagan. Imagine the people, Nagamutu is embracing Chedi Jagan now. He came out with this one for you, Pa. Irfan mentioned it. He tried to destroy our party. The people who tried to take away Red House, Red House, Chedi Jagan served his whole life, the people of this country from 1946, till when he passed away. And he has, in a state building, dedicated to his life and work. And they tried to take that away from him. Someone who served this country his whole life through tough periods. They're talking about desecration of Chedi Jagan at Babujan because we dare to criticize the crooks, and there are abundant number of crooks against us now, and the racists, but it's all grounded back in Chedi Jagan's philosophy. That's why those young people who read the excerpts from Chedi Jagan's philosophy, you will see that everything that we said or did there is in keeping with the philosophy of Chedi Jagan. So we're not, if anyone is desecrating Chedi Jagan, is these people. So again, they're trying to drive a wedge in the PPP, which will not succeed. The wedge is that, Jagdeo and Irfan Ali, they're leading the PPP down a different pathway away from Chedi Jagan's philosophy. It's not going to work. We have the old people, the older comrades there. Last week, right here, at Freedom House, it was last week or the week before, a gentleman came in from abroad. He's 91 years old. And he brought a picture we took together. And this gentleman told me, he had a note there, and he said, do you remember the following people? Like we had a guy named Gulliver, Afro-Guyanese organizer. Gulliver used to live at Dutch Fort Hope in a big motorcycle, and he said, do you remember Gulliver? And I said, yes, I used to ride as a boy at the back of Gulliver's bike. They are so pleased with our party and its direction. You're not telling them that the PPP is straying from Chedi Jagan, because they see the transformation of Guyana. They see how many people more are getting housing, free education now, that people are getting jobs, the healthcare is expanding. This is all PPP philosophy from the beginning. That's what they work towards. And they see the party becoming strong and unified and broad-based. And so when they come here and talk about, they try this wedge, they're moving from Chedi Jagan, they're hoping to play against the elderly people in the party who would think that we're straying from Chedi Jagan. Those people are clever. They know what's happening too. So I've seen a lot of that this week again, that from out of the Babujan activity, they blow these dog whistles to appeal to some groups of people. So it is insecurity based on race, it is insecurity based on the straying of the party from Chedi Jagan ideals, etc. Then there are a few things I said there that people may think, oh, the PPP is supremely confident in winning the elections. But why would Jagdeo say not want a surprise? Isn't this contradictory? And we are confident of winning the elections. But I've said it here, confidence must not become arrogant. And we've always worked every single day as though we are behind. That's how we work. As General Secretary of the party, that's how I work. And I want every activist of this party and supporter to work as though we are behind. That's when you ensure the outcome. Because if people grow too confident, a lot of them, we had that in the elections before. They say, oh, we don't win already, don't go out. Maybe they don't make the effort to go out and vote. That's why I said to people, confident, but you have to go back to take the message of the party and to do the work on the ground. And that is what we said. We are, what the opposition is engaged in now, they're engaged in selecting a candidate. So when you go through a process of selecting a candidate, you want to have a boost at the poll because Norton is running low at the poll, Nigel Lewis is running even lower, right, at the poll. So, and then they have like some fringe elements, Chicken Man, trying to get some attention, you know. So the idea is to select a candidate that will give you a boost in the poll, and people would say, this is the man that can lead us now. Like what they did with Granger. Now, no matter who they choose, it's the same political structures that the person would be working with. The same philosophy, the same mediocre people, like the Mahip Alls and the Elson Lows and the Holders who have no policy experience. That's the same group of people. They're defined in their lack of vision, their lack of planning, their lack of achievement, their proclivity to steal elections, people like Mike Paul and Norton and Nigel Lewis. So that's why I said anyone except God. It's not arrogance, but who is going to give them that bump in the poll? Assuming they bring a fresh face. What difference would it make to their planning or their philosophy? Nothing, absolutely nothing. They have no intention of delivering anything. Even this week I saw them saying, oh, people asked them some questions. And they said, oh, when we get into office, we'll deal with that. These are policy questions. You should have an answer now to say what you're going to do. So that's why I dealt with that. So this exercise that they're engaged in now, that is taking so long, I see they put the Elson Low as a candidate now. You know, these people really don't respect us. Anyhow, whoever they choose, if they choose Mai Paul or they bring Bugs Bunny to put him as or any famous cartoon character, the famous one, because some people think it's how much likes you get, right, on Facebook that makes you a good candidate. So we should bring a person with a lot of likes on Facebook. It's not going to make a difference who the coalition puts, because people know what they're about already. They know what they're about already. So that's why I dealt with that issue, because sometimes people think, oh, pay some attention to the exercise. Like my colleague said to me, oh, I wonder who they're going to put now. And I say, oh, don't waste my time. Don't waste my time. I'm not too worried about who they put, because it's not going to make any difference to them. They have no plan whatsoever. Now, just prior to Babujan, I went to Berbice, that's the Saturday, and I had 4 community meetings, and I was pleased that a large number of people came out like at 11:30 in the day on a Saturday when they had to go to market. And I was thinking, very few political parties can actually get people to come out that time of the day. So people came out, and I felt good, because I'm a politician and I go by the feel of the community. So people they complain about the NIS. So there were complaints. Every one of our meetings, because we speak, and then I'd say, I'd listen now, so you tell me I'm here now, what's the issue? And so they kept complaining about NIS, and I had to explain to them, we've already helped nearly 10,000 people who've had NIS problems in the past few years, who have submitted their names, etc., and had difficulties at the NIS, 10,000, but you probably have another 10,000 out there who have issues. So I said, Ashni Singh will come, he will go to the NIS office, bring his staff, and work with people. That's how we work. So sometimes I see when some people go to the community meetings and people say, oh, there's an NIS problem. They say people complaining about the government. We encourage that. It helps us to solve problems, because we're the only party that will actually come up with a problem, a solution. None of them would work on that. The complaint would be made, yeah, I hear the government bad, and then they leave. We've helped 10,000 people. We put in place, like just in Berbice, sent back Ashni Singh, and then I explained to people where we have a large number of people. We've just put in the budget $10 billion that will give every NIS contributor between 500 contributions and 749 who didn't qualify to get a pension. And this is from the 1970s all the way to now. Once they will now get a check in 2 months, and it would be a substantial sum of money. They will get back some of the contribution that they made to NIS that they didn't get all these years because they didn't qualify for a pension. We put that in the budget. So that will help about maybe 7,000, 8,000, and I'm just calling a number from what I saw in the past. It could be much more. People who have been struggling to try to get a pension but could not get a pension because according to the law they didn't make the contributions, or somebody did not pay their contributions in. So that's how we work. This was in an outreach to Berbice now. We're fixing it all the time. We never stop. 10,000 people fixed already. We're going to fix probably another 7,000, 8,000 people more would be fixed with NIS problems. We don't see this as a problem when people raise it. The others see it, oh, it's a criticism of government, but no other government or any political party has ever gone to the community with a solution, or at least looked at people's problem, take their names down. They complain about the drainage. So I explained to them that we've done a lot of work in drainage, roads, etc. And the problem is some community drains. So what did we do in this year's budget? We already sent up into Berbice. Berbice has 22 local government bodies that contested the last elections. Every one of those 22 received an excavator. This year, they have received, the subvention has gone from $5 million to $20 million to assist with the cemeteries, the internal drains, and garbage collection. We're buying compactors for all the towns in the country. So when they complain about garbage or the cemetery overgrown, like the people in Berbice did again, we are providing solutions and giving them more resources to tackle the problem. Which other political party has done that? Have you seen anyone attempting to do this? And I'm just speaking about Berbice because I was there last Saturday. I explained to them what's being done. They complain about the concrete roads, some of them too narrow. And I said to them, we have built in Berbice almost every road from Molson Creek to Mara is under construction, has been completed, or this year would be awarded. Every single road from 2021, just after COVID, when I went to the ground, Irfanali went, I think he was in the Hampshire area, I went up to Crabwood Creek, and they took me in the night and showed me nothing there. Some of the roads are so narrow there that you can't, it's like 8 feet. So you just had to put the water main in the middle of the road because there's no parapet, and then cover it over with a concrete strip, so people will get, something to walk on. Some are just pathways. Some are too narrow, yes, because there's not enough space. In other areas, Public Works should have done 12 feet roads, but we explained to them, we're going to dig out the shoulders 2 feet on both sides and have a compacted surface with sand and crusher run. So even if you come off the road, you can widen it. And then when you get to the pole, remember the 2 poles are here. You can't do anything there. The lantern poles on both sides. You may be 8 feet here, but 12 feet at the other places. So you can come off the road. We explained to people this. This is what I saw some other people who went to meetings say, oh, the roads are too narrow, etc. They're not a word about what they will do, how they fix it. We fix every road. So when you talk about substance of outreaches, we don't go up there and skin our teeth and take a few pictures all the time. We don't do that. We talk about substance. I spoke at Berbice. I said, are you aware that we've awarded 3 contracts to build a 4-lane road from Crabwood Creek, from Molson Creek, the border, all the way into New Amsterdam, that will start almost immediately. But in 2 years, the people in that region will have a 4-lane road on which to conduct business. Then I spoke to them about the bridge. The president announced the toll-free access from August of this year, but we have just the financial proposal for the new Berbice Bridge to mirror that of the Demerara Bridge, a similar type structure, will be open, I think, before the end of this month or maybe next month. So we can award that. That will be awarded. We spoke about the new stadium that's being built, the new facility sports complex at Albion, about the new track in New Amsterdam, about 125 grounds being upgraded, all 125 grounds in Berbice. This year is $750 million alone for that process. 22 grounds with lights this year, outside of those that are upgraded. We spoke about the Hope Light canals, $10 billion being spent from our LCDS funds to prevent flooding and open up new lands in Berbice for agriculture and other purposes, because they'll bring the water from the backlands directly into the Atlantic, like the Hope Canal. That's $10 billion that would transform agriculture. I spoke of the diversification job opportunity for people, that apart from rehiring the over 2,000 sugar workers that were laid off, we have now hired another 4,800 part-time workers, and through other government programs, maybe 10,000 people just on government alone are working in Berbice, who are now working in 2020. We spoke of expanding, not just converting Gaisuko, but right now we're working at taking 62,000 acres of land into an agro-industrial complex in the Skeldon area, from Molson Creek all the way to the Skeldon plant, where it includes hemp and tobacco and some cane and a whole range of orchard crops that will make that an agricultural hub that we can process food and export to diversify the economy in Berbice. We've assigned money already for some of the infrastructure. It's in this year's budget. It's at NARI. 160 million US hospital in New Amsterdam. Another 30 million hospital in Skeldon that would open shortly. These are the real things that we talk to people about, transforming lives. Healthcare, education, a college in Port Morant, the Oil and Gas College, that would be a hospitality training institute and an institute for training nurses in Berbice too. So it's healthcare, it's education, it's infrastructure, it's drainage and irrigation, it's support to the farmers, it is sports and for our young people and other things, job creation. All of these things we spoke of. And then, of course, the nearly 50 billion we've spent on these community roads, every community road. Think of which other political party or these clowns that run around and post their pictures all the time. Have they ever spoken about anything of that? I'm just talking about Berbice and what we spoke of this week on Saturday, just laying out what is being done already. These are programs that we are already investing in, that people will see the benefits of in the future. So which political party has been able to do this, or any other aspirant with that amount of detail? We don't go, just generally and walk around the place. So that's why I will talk about, I view these antics with amusement when I'll come to that in a moment, when I talk more about the politics. So there are a couple of things I want to. So let me talk about the Mohammeds too a bit, since I'm dealing with that. So right now, I saw the Mohammed, so I think the son has outsourced some of the criticism to the father. So the father, I didn't see it last week, said that, they're victims, that Jagdeo is a vindictive against them. And then the son repeated this issue that he is victimized. His vehicles are being taken away because there is a conspiracy against them, and because somehow he's decided to run for elections. But what are the facts? Now, you know that the Mohammeds were sanctioned since June of last year by the United States government. They said that they smuggled over 10,000 kilograms of gold in 5 years and they evaded over 50 million US in taxes. They said that that these sanctioned entities, including the Team Mohammed, which is mentioned in the OFAC statement that sanctioned them, they said US citizens are prohibited from doing any business with the Mohammeds, and that Guyanese entities and institutions that do business with the Mohammeds and in persons could face a US law enforcement action or be sanctioned themselves. It's all part of that statement. The fact is that some people have already, who've been doing business with them, or not maybe even know them, got their visas taken away. In fact, a large number. That's the fact from since June of last year. Long before they decided, well, they said they haven't even decided to contest the elections. That's what they're claiming. But that was June of last year. The banks here all stopped doing business with them because they couldn't put the country at risk. The government disengaged from them. They complained about it. The government had to pull the Cambio license because we could not put our financial sector at risk because of them. They believe that somehow they have a peculiar, special hold on the PPP, that we must risk the entire country to protect their illegalities. That's what we must do. And so a number of other engagements with the government came to an end. Long before now. This was happening almost a year now. So then this consummate moron went and posted his vehicle that he paid $98.6 million on 3 vehicles. And the GRA looked at it. The GRA is an independent organization, looks out for taxes. I did not know how much they paid on vehicles. Nobody said a word about these vehicles all the period until the day that this moron posted how much taxes he paid on 3 vehicles. 2 days later, the GRA said, no, you owe much more taxes. And the GRA came out with the right calculations. Go and read the statement. Then the GRA looked at all of the other vehicles that he claimed. So he claimed that on a video, that he paid $1 million for the Lamborghini and then declared it for $75,000 US. That's moronic behavior. That is like real stupid. It's a depth of stupidity. Right? You claim that, you leave evidence in the social media, and you go and declare another figure to the GRA. That is fraud. It's fraud and money laundering, because you clearly had to send money, the rest of the money, $1 million if you paid for it, and you only declared $75,000. I saw somebody, a young Afro-Guyanese guy, asked him a question about paying your taxes. And he started mumbling. He was mumbling. Somebody sent me something. How you know me and pay me tax? That's what he was saying when confronted. So he said that, so that's one. Then other members of the family who are now living in Guyana claimed the remigrant status and brought in several other vehicles, evading hundreds of millions of taxes, and then gave him the vehicle, and he claimed they're part of his fleet in violation of the law and the residency requirement for immigrant status. All illegal. These people, they believe that they can get away with any illegality. Any illegality, because maybe they did it in the past and nobody addressed it. So they grown accustomed to the arrogance of, oh, I can get away with anything, any illegal activity. So now they claim a plot by the PPP. He said, oh, the PPP taking away his vehicle because we're victimizing him. Not because he's so stupid to trigger the whole thing on his vehicle and cause the taxes to be levied. Now, they don't want to pay the taxes, but they're not. You don't have two laws in this country. Law, it's equal law for everyone. And the GRA, that's how they will treat you. That's how they will treat you. And so, there is no, he didn't even plan to, we didn't even know he is planning about contesting elections at that time, because he claims he was doing charity. And this charity is you evade 11 billion in taxes, on which is just the tip of the iceberg, by the way. The tip of the iceberg. Because that's what the US government has only know about. But that's only for 5 years. $11 billion in taxes. You could have given 11,000 Guyanese $1 million each. But then you give some charity, a couple of vehicles, etc., and we must be grateful for that. So you're thinking this is their way of trying to avoid paying taxes. So in their very small mind, they thought that by maybe contesting the election, that's why they told people that by contesting the elections now, they can claim being victims of the PPP vindictiveness or Jagdeo. That is what they're claiming. By contesting the election, they can make a claim of being victims. That's the only reason, and hopefully the sanction and the taxes will go away. A lot of others do this before. That's the only reason. They don't give out anything because of charity. If you're stealing $11 billion and you're giving up a couple $100 million, as I said, that's good business to be in. Good business to be in if you're a crook. But notice, they haven't answered any questions about what the US said they have a mountain of evidence for. You keep questioning, the man asks him, you talk, no, I'm pristine. I'm pristine, I'm very clean, it's this big bad PPP government. None of this was started by us. You're on the very few people in the world get sanctioned by the US government. You're one of them for corruption. Very few people in the world, the Reuters would put out a story that they're into drug trafficking and gold smuggling. Look at the Reuters story. So there is no victimhood or persecution here. There are illegalities, and you have to face the consequences when you get caught now with stealing taxes everywhere, smuggling gold, evading taxes on the vehicle, duping all the agencies. It's the day of reckoning has come. And so you need to be clean with the people of this country. So if you'll notice, when they go to the communities, let me tell you what the modus operandi. So I spoke with some young ladies, they called me, from Hampshire, because I had gone to Hampshire just after I remember the same trip that I made to Crabwood Creek on that night when I spoke with people. I think it was one of my first visits out after the COVID pandemic started waning, and we hadn't started building any roads in Berbice as yet. So I stopped in at Hampshire, and there was a big group of people there, and they were saying, we didn't know about the part-time job here. in the community, and we're badly affected because we don't have any jobs here. People are laid off from these areas on the APNU, the sugar belt. This was the sugar belt. It badly affected everyone. And I said, we will extend the program. I said, go back. I said to the same regional authorities, go back into this community and work the area. And that whole area, in the Hampshire other areas, we had about 300 people, women who were desperate on the part-time program, working 10 days for 40,000. So a few of them went to the meeting. You had about 50 persons in the meeting at Hampshire, and about 30, 40 of them were there, part-time workers. And some of them called me and said, you know, we were told by the Ramaya and the others, and Sogrim, AFC people, because Ramaya we had put to, when he said he was desperate, he had a cushy job, he had a vehicle, and he was working with the part-time workers there. So now Ramaya has joined up. This guy is usual. I don't want to talk too much about him, but I tell you just now. So he's linked up. So they said we were told that we're going to get a house or some money. We didn't go there to support anybody. And you know, when we talk about roads and stuff like that, it's where everybody, if the street is narrow, will tell anybody you come. This is what they're doing. They're duping people. They're duping people. And then they take down their numbers and call them and say, will you support us politically? So a lot of people are offered help to go to these meetings. Those girls knew they never had a job there. And people, now we condemn violence in all of its form. Political violence or any form of violence. Domestic violence whatsoever. There should be no violence in the way we conduct our business. People can free to talk whatever they want. They're free to protest, but there must be no violence. But let me tell you, when you go to the sugar belt, where people saw their children practically starving, they don't know what APNU did. When those people were laid off, they closed their estates. They, men and women, the families broke up. Some of the families broke up. Some children stopped going to school. A lot of people didn't have food. We did some projects in different communities. I'm not going to call the names of the areas, where when we took like little hampers to people, we're in opposition. I know how rural people are sometimes. They're very embarrassed to collect hampers. And I saw in those lines young women and young men standing up to collect the hampers, which was something shocking for me. The children couldn't go to school. There's some images of this. I should get them to play back the interviews they did with these school kids about how their friends were going to school because their parents didn't get any money. And it happened at Wales too, not just the Sugar Belt in Berbice. So when you go with a Ramaya or a Sogrim that had helped the AFC lie to the sugar workers and tell them they're going to get 20% salary increases every year, and many of them supported you, like in 2015. And they got zero for all those years, and then they lost their jobs and couldn't feed their families. When you go back with those same individuals who are helping to organize for this Azruddin, and when you go back and they're the mobilizers, and another one who was selling gun licenses, he was linked to the Ministry of Home Affairs, AFC. The people are resentful. What you saw there it's not orchestrated, it's spontaneous. They're angry. They're not going to be fooled. They will say, not again. The same AFC, and they know that this Azruddin and his father went to see Nigel Hughes, and Nigel Hughes bring the political leader of their party, Trotman, to sit in at the meeting because he wanted legal advice from Trotman. Trotman wrote down the legal advice. They know it's part immediately thereafter. All the AFC candidates and people who were working with them in the past started working for Azruddin. Every one of them. Because it's another ploy to fool people again. So they bring the new face, the clown, the moron. And so he is not going to fool people. So I don't pay too much attention to this guy. People get excited. Oh, he's here now, there. People go there for money. And I don't begrudge them. But please don't go. He's going to lie to you. He's going to lie. I think when he got to pay all his taxes and stuff like that, you all might have to give him back the money. You might got to give him back the money when he pays all the taxes. And because, and it's just the tip of the iceberg. So, as I said before, I condemn violence in any form, but don't underestimate the resentment. The hate. Ramjatan can't show up there because of what he did to the families. When a politician lies that way and cause people to lose where they can't feed their children, they get angry. Those women are angry because they know what happened. And a lot of the people, some of the people who showed up at his place, like the part-time workers, they wouldn't have had a job had it not been PPP. Who showed up? They know that. They wouldn't have had a job if PPP wasn't in office. So what you saw there was spontaneous. Spontaneous. People are angry. But they should protest peacefully if they have to protest. There is no room for violence. That's all I'm going to say this week. There is this week only on the Mohammeds. I'm not done with my press conference as yet. So don't rush. Don't rush. It's just this week because last week they said, oh, it's Jagdeo. He vindictive. He don't like us. Oh, something is wrong. They're scared of him. Oh, this guy. Have you ever seen them when they don't splice little comments on the thing? Have you ever seen this guy? Someone asked him, a young Afro guy, and he said, what are your plans for the future? Don't worry about that, right? Basically, in the future, we'll talk about that. He's clueless. Clueless. Look at Irfan Ali today. Irfan Ali is our candidate, sharing a press conference with Secretary Rubio. Can you imagine this guy sharing a press conference even with Bozo the Clown? You can't imagine that. I'm looking forward to the first press conference. Yes, and all the large number of people he's paying to edit the videos, and to every post that they make, he doesn't have anything to do with it. They make the post for him. But it's part of the plan, the AFC plan. The APNU needs the new Trojan horses into the PPP's community, because they lied so many times that they even need Trojan horses into the Afro-Guyanese communities, because they lied so many times, people don't want to see them, so they think that these new faces would help them. It's not going to work. There are a couple of things that I want to deal with. There is a fraudster who has been stealing from people repeatedly. Now, when we got into office in 2020, came into office on the 2nd of August, and the Guyana Securities Council wrote us saying that there's a firm called Accelerated Capital Firm that was running a pyramid scheme, and they did not have a license to conduct financial operations in Guyana, and they were ripping people off. So all throughout APNU, and it was conducted by a man named Yuri. So He got his citizenship under APNU, and for a few years, he defrauded thousands of Guyanese, hundreds of millions, running into billions of dollars of their money through this pyramid scheme. About 18 days after we got into office, this came to our attention. And immediately, we started examining what was happening. Because by that time, already a lot of the people were complaining they were losing their money. And the pyramid scheme, please check this, Guyanese. Google it, check how it works. At the beginning, it works well. They take one person's money and pay the other person. They get a good return. And then it works that way until it collapses. And they take all the money away. So to cut the story short, the police filed 180 charges, fraud charges, against this person and his wife. And a lot of these cases are pending in court. He lied to people. He said he had the money in some crypto scheme abroad. We told him you can bring back the money. It was a lie. So I'm going to just read an excerpt of what Anil Nandalal said on the 14th of September, just about a month after we got into office, 2020, after we had investigated this, and APNU had allowed thousands of people to lose their money. They knew about this. And I heard many top officials in the APNU government were benefiting from this, and people in the police force too were allowing this to happen, the rip-off of people. So this is what Anil Nandalal said. He wants the police now to sign an agreement with him. The police obviously have been advised not to sign any such agreement, yet he clamors for bail. Clearly, once bail is granted, he will skip the jurisdiction, which he did. He ran away. After the bail got, searches have been done by the various investigative agencies in relation to any assets which he may own in Guyana. He doesn't own a single piece of property, not a motor vehicle, not a movable property, and certainly not any immovable property. And no one can provide any sensible information as to the whereabouts of all this money that he has amassed from the people of Guyana and people elsewhere. So it is clear beyond a shadow of a doubt that these monies were received as part of a fraudulent criminal enterprise, and they have been converted to the recipient's own use. And no one knows where these monies are, and there are no assets that the state can hold. And as I said, all efforts to cooperate with the accused persons with a view getting the money back to Guyana has proven to be futile. So I thought that this information should be disseminated widely. We warned people. Now, a lot of people came to us. They had invested $200 million, $300 million. Some people, small amounts, they ripped them off. This crook, this fraudster ripped people off. So last week, I got a call and say he's back at it again. And he was in the country. And I don't know how the police are looking for this man. And he was in the country. And I spoke with a member of parliament. And he's not, well, I wouldn't tell you who he is, but not PPP member of parliament. This morning I spoke with him. And he said last year he invested some money with him too. And I said, how could you be so stupid? The guy went to Unity Village, and he's been several elderly people and others. He's ripped them off again. He told them, that this is the way that if they invest more money with him, they can get back the money that they lost, that he has this money in some crypto scheme, and all sorts, the fraudulent talk. And really, I don't know why the people of our country believe that you would get free money just like this. They just got seduced by the talk. It's like from the moron too. Sometimes they go and the moron cons them. But in this case, it's blatant. You were warned about it. Why would you put your money with fraudsters? And so a lot of elderly people, etc., this guy has stolen their money again. And the police, the president has given direction that they got to look for this guy again. Anybody knows about him or his network. Because he pays a lot of people. It's a fraud scheme, so they get some people connected with him. So he's been telling people that when APNU comes back into office, he's going to get a license. Well, two things will now happen. APNU will now come back in office, and you will go to jail. I hope they catch him and jail him. You're not going to... This is a crook. I hope you're watching this. I hope you're watching this, and anybody associated with him comes to you, call the police, go to the police now, and let's get them locked up. It's unconscionable. I know some businessmen invested, but I don't want to say bad things. They were stupid people. If you were a businessman and you invest $100 million, well, too bad. You lose your money because of stupidity. But the elderly, I'm more concerned with. Housewives, elderly people. They get seduced into this scheme. Because they believe, I got a little money, I can invest it and get something. And they fall prey to this talk because they're smooth talkers. Those are the people I'm worried about now. That I don't know how deep it has gone, because if he did this last year, as the MP told me, since last year he's been at it again. So restarted the scheme, and it only came to my attention last week when I was in Berbice. I got a call about it happening, and if it didn't happen in my village, I wouldn't have even known. So this is, I hope that we catch this. And APNU needs to, for the sake of the people of this country, this is outside of politics, they need to disassociate themselves from this guy too. APNU. AFC may not want to do that, but APNU. Not the APNU, the PNC. They need to do that because he's using them as the cover, unless they endorse it. Unless they endorse it. This is a total cook. Now I pointed out that the mayor and city council were on the program, had embarked on a path after getting directions from Congress Place to scam people and to raise funds. So they did not succeed when they tried to give GT&T a waiver of taxes. You remember, over $100 million they're going to waive for GT&T, and GT&T said, we never requested a waiver. So just imagine what would have happened. Now that went to the council, GT&T, they said GT&T is going to get a waiver. This is a foreign company that didn't request a waiver, was prepared to pay all its taxes. So you know what was going to happen there. We had warned about this, the mayor and the others, meeting people directly to negotiate waiver of taxes. That it could be corrupted, and they would, apart from personal corruption, it could lead to money raising funds to the PNC. So I believe that the PNC, to give it some veneer of credibility and a veneer of goodness, they put a policy now to waive taxes across the board. But trust me, we know what's going to happen there. So Minister Parag wrote them that it's illegal what they're trying to do. It's not in accordance with the financial regulations. They have to seek approval because we believe this is a scam scheme. It's to collect money from people as part of the so-called waiver. You know how it works. You owe 10 million, you can pay 5, and you share 2 with the party, 1 with the party and 1 with us. That is how they would work there. So we are not supportive of this, and we'll expose it. This is the PNC's way of raising funds and supporting corruption at City Council. I saw in the I didn't notice this one. No state funding for NGOs critical of government, Jagdeo tells supporters. So at Babujan, this is Kaitor News. It says, Vice President Bharrat Jagdeo said the PPP government will only support non-governmental organizations that promote progress, but not those that oppose the ruling party. Of course. Oh, why would we fund an NGO that opposes the ruling party? Why? NGOs are not supposed to oppose parties or not. They're non-governmental organizations to do either for advocacy or to do work. You have 2 types of NGOs, advocacy types and those that actually do things, go out and feed people and stuff like that. I didn't know that I thought political parties oppose other political parties, not NGOs. But they are saying we must support the NGOs who oppose us politically. But they're part of the political establishment. So this is extremely stupid. And I stand by my comment. I said we will support those who do work for people. And we have shown massive support for those who work in this year's budget with animals. They saw their subvention increase in manyfold. We're in this year's budget. The NGOs that work with children and who are abused, etc., they've had a massive increase in their subventions, and I say massive since we got into office, because they work with children, with others. NGOs that cater for people living with disability, they get huge support from us, and we have seen that growth. But you think we're going to fund the GHRA? That is a waste of time. That causes the PP, there is part of the PNC. We got to be crazy. And as I said before, it's not arrogance. Listen to Secretary Rubio, what he said about the NGOs and the Trump administration. Something we've been saying all along. They're saying, now, there are some people who just live off of this stuff. They say, live off this stuff. In 2015, the Vote Like a Boss campaign. You remember? Funded by the US government. Guess where it concentrated? In urban centers. They recruited all the people who were hostile to us to only do voter turnout in urban centers. You think we will do this? So when you say things that are evidently truthful and be honest with people, they think it's a put down. I don't, that somehow I'm saying something that is offensive to people. They don't feel that an NGO opposing a political party, although NGO shouldn't be set up for that, that's okay, normal. That's not offensive. When we say we're not going to support that, then that's offensive. This is the topsy-turvy way that we analyze things in this country. It's like a different world. You know, a totally different world, Lilliputian land. You know, you ever in Gulliver's Travel, you read it. So this is, okay. I saw for the first time Kaichor News. I normally don't respond to them, but they complain about foreign currency shortages by one businessman. And at the bottom they said, and the story was not bad, they said that we said we will inject resources as is needed. We study the market, we look at the balance in all the banks. We don't look at a mismatch. We only address mismatch between revenue, not revenue, flow of currency and demand for currency. The timing, to smooth out timing of flows, we intervene. Like today, the central bank intervened and put 35 million US into the banking system. And as I said before, we have the capability of putting as much foreign currency into the banking system as is needed to smooth out or to meet legitimate demand, to smooth out the mismatch between flow or meet legitimate demand. We have the capability of doing so, but we will do so in a measured way because we don't want to cause an appreciation of the currency too. If you put too much money in at once, you cause an appreciation of the currency, and that could ultimately lead to the Dutch disease. That is what is considered. It's bad for the agricultural sector, it's bad for manufacturing, too much appreciation of the currency. So I saw that there. I saw again, Kaichor News raised no word from the government on a timely completion of Exxon's third audit, and I saw they wrote they had a big runaround. Well, it looks like they had a runaround here. So I want to tell them that the ministry told me today, I looked at the story, and the ministry told me they've given the company 2 weeks extension to complete the third audit or to submit their report on the third audit. I saw also the president's announcement has caused some reaction from the PNC. They don't want the free toll in Linden, claiming that it will affect their revenue, and that the government didn't discuss this with them as yet. So let me tell you that the president has already announced that all the people of the country will benefit from this. The people in Berbice, Region 5 and 6, the people in 4 and 3 who use the bridge, and also the people in Region 10, or anyone else who would use the bridge. We don't have many different policies. However, we will meet with the Town Council in Linden. We will meet with them to discuss this matter. Because we don't want them to claim that the limited services that they provide to people, blame the government again for that. You know, so that's why we'll meet with them to make sure they don't distort what's going on. So now I'll end there, so you can go with your question. Yeah.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Trina Williams, Guyana Chronicle. I'll start off with my question on the health sector. On Saturday, we saw the sod turning of the Camberville Polyclinic. And aside from that, we have 12 regional hospitals under construction. These are just some of the initiatives that the government has taken to achieve its goal of a world-class healthcare system. However, beyond physical improvements, there are still systematic challenges, such as the shortage of healthcare workers. With that said, how does your government plan to ensure that the developments taking place in the healthcare sector translate into a sustainable, high-quality healthcare system that is resilient and accessible into the future? And to follow up on what you briefly said about the opposition figures that have opposed the toll-free bridges. What do you think about one person asking if there was a feasibility study for that initiative?
Okay. So the goal is world-class healthcare for all of our citizens. There are several components to achieving that. First of all, modern infrastructure and equipment. So we have embarked on a nationwide. Thank you. Oh, I saw this clown Norman Brown said I'm drinking liquor at this press conference. I don't drink, but this clown Norman Brown the last time, they're getting really desperate that my coffee is liquor. Yes. So I was explaining that goal has several components. The first is world-class facilities, equipment. We have now embarked on a process to make the investments to do that. So it's not just the 12 hospitals that we are building, the new ones, but a series of new polyclinics and rehabilitating a lot of the existing hospitals and equipping them. For example, the hospital in Linden would see a 30 million US upgrade. I'm just giving you an example. Partica will see the same thing. The best hospital would see that, although we have another hospital being built in Region 3. So that's the first thing. We expect that will happen in a matter of a couple of years. The next is management of the hospital. So we have Mount Sinai now providing management support at the Georgetown Hospital. Now Mount Sinai and Northwell are two top US institutions. They run a network of hospitals in the US and globally. And we expect them to help us by training a lot of our personnel and to have kind of not an oversight, but provide management support to the hospitals. Because that's crucial to get these hospitals to deliver on our goal. And the goal, anyhow, let me don't get into many details now, because I'm tempted to go for very long. So that's the second component. The third component is personnel. So we have started recruiting already the non-medical people and medical people. We may need about, I used to say 6,000, may need 8,000 people, new people to work in healthcare delivery. From porters, cleaners, people to do laundry in the hospitals, all the services, landscaping in the yards of the hospital, keeping the compound clean, security, etc. Large numbers of people in all of these areas. So that process is ongoing now. Then training of more nurses and other personnel, but also recruiting people from abroad. So we believe our package is starting to be competitive, where we can recruit people and bring them in, even temporarily, until our people can be trained. But we may not still get our Guyanese alone. So we may have to recruit from around the world to bring people to work there. We're looking for specialists to run all of these hospitals too, and more doctors. And whilst we're training a lot of our people to specialize now, in fact, we're doing a lot of the training programs in Guyana so we can have the doctors here whilst they're training, they're getting the training to become specialists. So personnel is the third area. The fourth area is the availability of drugs and medical supplies across the system. Sometimes in the procurement, the distribution is not equal. And because it relies heavily on the hospitals requisitioning this, etc. So improvement, the availability of all of those issues. So there are several components to better care delivery, and all of these are being addressed. And then there is another component where collaboration with the private sector. So if we cannot deliver the quality care in the public sector, say in a cancer institute or something of that, where it's private and people have to pay to go to that, but they don't have to go abroad now, and it's very expensive abroad. We will then have a program where we can help to pick up some of the costs of their getting treatment in the private sector for specialized care that we don't provide. So a lot of those things, heavy focus on preventative medicine, primary health care. That is why the 10,000 voucher this year would allow us to get baseline data on, we want every citizen to have a file in the health system. That's why we're moving to the electronic patient management record system. So every Guyanese with a file there, and where we can track your treatments, etc. So if you're in Buxton, or you're in Port Morant, or in Enmore, or somewhere else, or even in Moruca, and you travel to another part of the country, Diamond, the doctor there can just pull up your file and see what treatments you have had before, what are the complications, what's your status, if you're hypertensive, what kind of medication you're using when you administer care. That's what we're building separately. There's this electronic patient management system. We're hoping that people collect their voucher, go in so we can get the records done. E-health platforms, telemedicine, all of those would allow us to do specialized care. So even if you're in a remote part of the country, you may be able to get the best care in the world from a doctor in New York or somewhere in the world where we don't have the specialists, but through telemedicine we'll be able to get. It's an entire plan, and every component of it is being worked on. It's not, people only see the buildings. They don't know that we have just awarded a contract for $3.2 million to build out the electronic patient management system. So a lot of work is being done. But no opposition member would discuss this, or the other parties. They don't have a clue. They would talk about, oh, we're going to deliver better health care, but you can't even get details from them. I can tell you the details for every hospital. We mapped the population size. We look at the geographic distances between hospitals and medical institutions. So if people have a heart attack, how long it would take them to get care. We're now working separately on the ambulance program, so emergency care. A lot of training now. We have some people now being trained in Northwell to come back and expand emergency care. So if you get a heart attack or you need emergency care, you don't have to drive from Linden or from the highway to come all the way to Georgetown. The Diamond Hospital would be maybe within 30 minutes away from you. You can get emergency care there too. A lot of the different components are being worked on to deliver that vision of world-class healthcare. So that is being worked on. And for people who said, oh, we should do a feasibility study before we give benefits to people, it's only clowns. Well, I've been overusing the clown word. So only callous people would say that. Oh, and if you give me, did they do a feasibility study when the APNU ministers took, and AFC ministers took 50% salary increase for themselves and gave the public servant that year 6%? Did they do a feasibility study? Did they do a feasibility study when they took away the 10,000 grant from the kids? Did they do a feasibility study when they took away the free water from pensioners? Or sent home 7,000 workers from Gaisuko? Or introduced VAT on electricity and water and data? They did all of these things. Or hinterland travel, did they look at a feasibility study of how it would add to cost of living there when they did that? No. Now they want a fee. We're bringing benefits to people and they want a feasibility study. They were pushing, taking away benefits and adding cost to them and no feasibility study. Notice that's the pattern here. It's a pattern. Only inept people and a party that practices ineptitude could really come up with these things that they come up with from time to time.
And finally, for me, your government has invested significantly in both the traditional and non-traditional sectors. You mentioned earlier about some of the developments happening in Berbice. However, with this being an election year and how the political landscape can be impacted by candidates offering sweeping, perhaps unrealistic promises, are you concerned that these proposals from these persons could undermine the electorate's perception of your administration's work? And how do you intend to address any attempts to undermine the government's work?
So people say, oh, we defend ourselves robustly. It means a lot of our activists and the leaders have to disseminate the information, because people sometimes, when they live in their communities, they don't see the big picture. So they can be seduced by an individual promise. Which affects them alone. Like a lot of those part-time workers said to me, we're single parents, we need a house. Some of them that went to the morons meeting. So, and I said to them, you don't even have a land. We're working now that by the end of this year, we would be able to clear all the backlog in Berbice for people who applied up to December of 2024 for a house lot. We haven't been able to do so in Region 4 because of everybody who apply here, even people from the other regions. So we're up 2019 now, although we've done the bulk of the house lots here in this region. But here, so do you know that's going to happen? And the only government in the future that would actually help people to build houses or give them some help with the building of the houses on a scale, not one person and not 5 persons, but thousands of people, is a PPP government. So people can get seduced by that. I agree with you, but I think on the whole, when people assess you, and when we go on the platform, they're going to see, when they assess what happens if, for example, another party, say in Berbice, another party comes into office, like PNC comes back, they're cork duck, that to use a general expression, and not only in Berbice, in Linden too. They don't get nothing, absolutely nothing, like they focus on no development in Linden. So people I have great faith in people's understanding what's taking place now. And they're not going to be fooled like before, but it's up to this people to carry that message constantly, or activists. So the investments may not all lead to an immediate change in their lives, but ultimately, only by pursuing this thing, the strategy over the long term can you achieve that success. Like if we go with APNU, one of their promises, and all public servants vote like for APNU, every one of them, because they said 200% increase in wages and salaries. So you can't do anything else. So the public servants now, although they may get a big salary, nobody else gets anything else. The 800,000 others who live in the country, and the public servants can't drive home because they wouldn't have a road to drive on, or they would be paddling, buying a little boat because the seawall would break in, etc. All of the money goes to that. So people have to think in an integrated way too. I get a wage increase, but I'm getting a better road. The road costs $15 million. I'm getting now a scholarship. I can get a scholarship. I'm getting a better quality health care too. My children is getting some more money. My grandparents getting some more money because of the doubling of old age pension. It is the integrated approach, and we are also investing to create more jobs and better income in the future. So we're doing all of this, and we're still investing in the future. So when my children grow, they will have they would inherit a country that is better off. That is the kind of complex thinking that we're trying, hopefully, to give to people. And that's why a lot of young Afro-Guyanese and others, no, not just young, but older ones too, and people of every race are coming to us because they can see the complex thinking ahead, and that we're focused on progress, and that we have a sustainable plan. Yes.
Dr. Jagdeo, Mikhail Rodriguez for Daybreak News. Much has been discussed between President Ali and Secretary Rubio today. Were any of those discussions the Americans' frustration in your government's inability to act on the Mohammeds, although sanctions have been brought against them? Not just complaints of corruption, but sanctions. Any frustration in the government's ability to act, and what will be done about that?
I don't want to speak publicly of our engagements with the United States government in relation to the Mohammeds and their sanctions. Just to say that the US, when the US announced the sanctions, they said they were investigating the Mohammeds for a minimum of 2 years. A ton of information is available to them, and we have also gathered quite a bit of information ourselves. Now, last year, if you go to my press conference, one of the press conferences, long before the moron decided that he's going to run for elections, that I was asked about it, and I said, SOCU is conducting an investigation. The FIU, since last year, did their report. SOCU has been involved. Several government agencies have been involved. What they have compiled, what was announced in the OFAC sanctions, where the US said, 10,000 kilograms exported and 50 million in evaded taxes. It's just the tip of the iceberg. So I can tell you about the investigations that have been done internally since last year, because we took the sanctions seriously. Sanctions are serious business. And we made it clear that we were not going to put Guyana at risk, the people of Guyana, their livelihoods, because we wanted to protect one family that was smuggling gold and doing other illegal activities. So I don't want to talk about our engagements with the US government, but this is not persecution. it is facing the consequences for criminal activities that you engaged in the past. And the PPP can't help you with that one. If you're upset at the PPP because you think we're going to help you out of this one, simply because, and put the country at risk. And when I say country, I mean ordinary people too, not just the banks. Look how many people have lost their visas because of this family. Look how many people, if the cambio license was not pulled, can you imagine what could have happened now? Or everybody who got a debit card or a credit card or make an online purchase may have been unable to do so now because of the same man who is running around saying, ask your finale, ask Jagdeo. When asked about their illegalities, we must ask us. Why don't you tell people about that, your illegalities? Why ask us? Well, since he asked, he said, ask me, so I'm glad you asked me. Since he said, ask me, so I'm responding. This is what I have to say.
Dr. Jagdeo, has there been any discussion or expression by the government to Secretary Rubio as it relates to opposition's mannerisms, the cries of racism that doesn't exist, the cries of apartheid?
I told you about the areas that we discussed with Secretary Rubio. The president outlined those areas. I went into a little bit more detail about the same areas, but because the president had limited time, but I'm sure he will do a program that he will speak extensively. But the PNC did not figure in our discussion, the PNC and AFC. I can say that bluntly. PNC and AFC did not figure in our discussion.
One more follow-up with the first question. So the Attorney General spoke to some extent about moving forward as a result of discussions between the Americans and here.
Let me think. The discussion.
Will it move
I
forward?
was in.
Oh, you were in those discussions?
No, go ahead. Yes, go on.
Okay. Will we see the process, the legal process, making haste now in light of, it seems that the Americans have shared some information and the Guyana Revenue Authority and the Guyana Police Force has enough information to move forward and maybe be soon laying charges?
So the Attorney General has spoken because he's the points person between the U.S. government and the government of Guyana. And he just gave a comment today to the media. So I fully endorse the comment, what he said, and therefore there's no need for me to repeat what he said.
Dr. Jack.
Yes.
Dr. Jagdeo, Cordell Jones from Livewire News. There's a video circulating on social media, a vehicle owned by Azardine Mohammed, outfitted with sirens and flashing lights. Isn't this illegal, and why is this being allowed?
Is it so? Because it's his vehicle? Or
I think it's a
know.
black Raptor, F-150.
Okay, that's illegal. And the police force needs to do their job. How many times we spoke about this here? There is a statement out by the government. In fact, the opposition wanted to take a motion to the parliament to say that we should ban the use by private people of these sirens and these flashing lights. My Paul had drafted the motion. I criticized my Paul here by saying that why should we go and discuss this motion when it's already illegal and we are public on this matter. We've been in the public domain as saying that the police need to arrest and take off these things from the vehicles, pull them in. So if that is true, then it's double standard, but it also tells you about the impunity, how these people operated in the past. They operated with impunity. I recall one time the Attorney General said to me, coming down the East Bank, that he just passed a huge convoy of vehicles with flashing lights and siren. It used to be the Mohammed. And I think that was one of the reasons why they're not so pleased with us too, because the president gave instructions to remove all of that. He was a private individual. And now we know a man who was smuggling large quantities of gold. But it's this obsession with this symbol of authority that they have. But they must act with impunity. And I recall, I think they were upset. But of course, that didn't matter. Now, so if this is the case, the police should just do their work. They should just do their job.
I'd like to bring your attention to a press statement by the AFC on the 26th, which speaks to PPP intimidating citizens exercising constitutional rights. How do you contrast this to the attacks Afro-Guyanese who are exercising their constitutional rights to support other parties than these traditional Afro-Guyanese parties, to the claim being made by the AFC?
Well, the AFC is a set of clown. Of course, the reason why they came out is because they're linked. The AFC and the Mohammeds are closely linked. Nobody can tell me that Nigel Hughes needed, as he said, his political advisor in a meeting between himself and the Mohammeds at his office. And they would have never issued a statement was it not exposed in the media. This is a long-going collaboration. And as I said before, it's part. They can't go back anymore, so we're lending these useless people. This Charles Sogrim is one of those people who hang around everything that comes along. And like I said to you, the ones in Essequibo, it's the same characters from the past. And now in Berbice, I see the three people who are organizing are the same characters from the AFC. So if they're lending support to this, I know the people, when they saw Ramaya, he infuriated a lot of them too, because this is a old scamp himself. Old scamp himself. So I was not surprised that the AFC is coming out with this sort of thing. I'm not surprised at it. They are linked together. Yes.
Dr. Jagdeo, good afternoon. Yeah. Isanello Patwa Newsroom. Can you say what arrangements the government is thinking of in compensating the Berbice Bridge Company and the Linden Town Council, and what will happen to the employees?
Yes. So the discussions are going on with the Berbice Bridge Company. I don't know where they are now, but clearly there would be some arrangement of that nature. The employees of the bridge, we'd still need to operate the bridge until the new bridge comes on stream, which would be a while from now. So the employees have nothing to fear about the government being part of this arrangement or taking over the bridge. and they would have to work with the shareholders of that bridge. And as I said before, we'd have to meet with the town council in London. Okay, thank you very much.
Like that.